Hi, everybody. Well met, my darling travelers.
Yes,
Like to say.
I want to take this moment really quickly to let everybody know I love you guys so much, but I am Chase. I see you 30 more days after your experience. That's going to be the only time that I really engage with the kind of like the alerts and everything. Just on, I want to make sure that we kind of can devote enough time to Koga and the information we're going to be going over today. So just so you guys are aware, I love you. Thank you for the streaks and everything. You guys are cutie patooties. But yeah, Chase ruined it for everyone. So now I'm not going to pay attention to you guys. Sorry.
Yeah, same thing on my end, guys. So I will mute our alerts because I like to think that I'm loud enough. And you can still keep your streaks and your drink streaks and everything. It's just the sounds aren't going to go through. I do have a little background music just to avoid any awkward silences, and I hope you guys can hear Nikki all right on my end.
Yes, please let us know how the sound is, everyone, before we hop into stuff. Matsume, thank you for the streak. Xander, also unrelated, but I got your email. I will respond to you soon. Sorry I haven't. It's been a whole fucking month, I think.
The only thing that
fine? Go ahead.
No, the only thing that, because I'm watching your stream as well, Nikki, and the only thing that freaks me out is I'm very pixelated on your stream for some reason.
And I don't understand why, and I could not figure it out on my end. Like it is not giving me an option to change anything. So I don't know.
I meant to be seen, not heard, okay? Heard, not seen. Sorry, the other way around.
Okay, wait. Freaking Henry, I'm sorry. Tell me what you wanted to do for a 100 stream streak, because that is really insane. You tell me, and then we're moving forward, and then that's the final time, okay? That's crazy. And sorry, Koga, you are very pixelated right now. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Oh. But you know what, guys? If you're interested in not seeing a pixelated form of Koga, you can go over to Koga's stream and check him out over there. What is it? Respectfully. All right? And oh my gosh.
What?
I love you guys. Sky, thank you so much. When we have people dropping like subs and stuff, we get a shared sub,
Nice.
like hype train. So please consider also going over to Koga and giving some love that way if you guys haven't already, or if you can. It would mean a lot to me. Skies, you know I love you. And Henry, I see you. I'm gonna give it to you right now. That's a legend. Koga, I'm so sorry. I'm overwhelmed now.
No worries, my heart just jumped because I turned off the wrong alerts. And therefore, I have a hype train alert, and it's Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train, and I had it really high up.
Oh,
so that made me jump.
That's crazy. I'm sorry, but also
that made me jump.
Wrecked, Koga.
I mean, on my head be it. It's my bad. It's my bad.
Freaking VIP. Okay. Enjoy your diamond. Hi 40. Hello everybody. Welcome in. Thank you so much. Yes. So Koga and I both have outfits of whimsy. Koga's outfit. I have to go over to his face and read it because it's pixelated on mine. But it's sick.
Yeah.
And then I'm,
kinda Halloween-y.
Yeah.
Also, talking about sharing streaks, before we focus on the conversation.
Oh, yes, okay.
Ozzy, I needed to do this.
Yo! Stream streak. Thank you, Koga. Yes, please, Alex. Could you get on Koga's level and actually match the vibe? Alex, thank you. Golly G. Okay. So, sorry, Alex. Anyway, everybody, we are gonna hop right on into our chat. We just wanted to, Koga, if you want to say hi to your chat, anybody who's popped in, because I see like Games Gurus here, some friends.
Yes. Welcome in, my darling travelers. As you've probably figured out and seen from the announcements on various social media platforms, we have a guest today, in the person of the lovely, I'm pointing at the wrong direction, of course, the lovely Nikki Hurray, who is a fellow scholar of the humanities and recently got her bachelor degree in anthropology. So
Mhm, mhm,
can drop
mhm.
some W's in chat for Nikki for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will be talking about magic, um, esotericism, if you want to be scholarly, if you want to be really, really pedantic, para-religious phenomenology, aka nerdy stuff with witches and demons and all the good stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
I did have a preliminary chat with Nikki, so we kind of know the main beats, and we want to keep this interactive, keep this fun, keep this lighthearted, but also informative. If for the really, really nerdy people that want to nitpick, I have my books on hand. I literally have 1 foot. So about 60
Yep.
centimeters of books next to me. 2 feet. 2 feet of
Yeah,
books
yeah, yeah.
next to me. So if we want the sources, we can go to that, but I do want to keep this lighthearted and informative and share some of my knowledge with you guys, and also poke at Nikki's brain because she is a very knowledgeable scholar in her own right.
Thank you. I love that. Do you also want to give a quick introduction of yourself to the community, just in case anybody who might be new hopping into the space?
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I am Kogayonum, most often called Koga, Kogai, or that annoying bar that pops in everybody's chat. I am a variety streamer originally from Romania, hence the 80s Bond villain accent. Currently living in Manchester in the UK. And I stream mostly music, pub songs, bardic music, medieval music, sea shanties, and the occasional Disney song when chat trolls me, and fantasy and medieval inspired games because I like to nitpick about what the devs got wrong. And I'm currently in between games, and I'm experimenting with my Sunday streams. This is why we're debuting my little series of Tales by Tankardlight with the lovely Nikki. And
Isn't that so cool? Okay, I'm done. Sorry, go on.
and I play WoW a lot.
That's
Because
World
the
of Warcraft to you guys not noobs, not gamers, okay?
So,
Read
shall we?
read Henry's chat really
Got
quickly.
more of a 17th century vampire who accidentally slept until modern times and is trying to fit in vibe with the accent. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. No, my accent my accent goes from all the way from, depending on how self-conscious I get, from putting on a proper RP and sounding like Sir David Attenborough to going full balcony and sounding like I want to hunt moose and squirrel, for who got the Rocky and Bullwinkle reference.
I love it. I love it. Brilliant. But yes, we can get started. To those who might be just tuning in again, and just to give a quick disclaimer, while I may know stuff, I do not know very many things, and oftentimes I am basically running around blind trying to figure out stuff. So I have the internet up in case I need to do a little heckin' googly search for something. But this is also our Sunday social, which is something that we like to do every Sunday. We come together and we just talk about life through an anthropological lens. So, uh, Koga was so gracious in being interested and willing to come and talk to us about his specialty, which he already sort of touched on. But yeah, we're gonna basically hop into it. The idea for today is that while Koga is like big brain out here, the wrinkliest, thickest brain there is about these topics, we are opening this to just being a casual discussion. So Koga will kind of like introduce to some of the topics and what like his main focuses are, but we are ultimately going to be talking to each other, to you guys, and just fucking nerding out. So like sit back, get yourself a freaking drink, and let's enjoy some tales by the Tankardlight.
Yay!
Yay! She said
Let
it.
me. I was like, I need to shake this because this is the only drink I have. Okay, let's start off with the hardest question first, Nikki, because I did warn you that I have some questions for you.
Yeah, you did.
Because I want to keep this fun.
Okay.
We said we're talking about magic. What's magic? Yeah. Without looking it up, without thinking too much, without pulling on your fancy degree, what is magic?
Okay, so for me, without trying to reference my degree, it has always been just the thing that is like extraordinary. So magic is, the potential of pixie fairy dust and, a werewolf running in the woods as I'm driving 100 miles an hour down, a highway. And it's kind of like it's like whimsy and fantastical and can like also be scary. Like it's almost like the whole Spider-Man with great power comes great responsibility, but for the most part it's just like really sick and cool. Sick in the cool way.
Okay, so basically magic is the supernatural. Anything you can't explain with your normal senses and your normal reasoning.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, with that in mind, what is religion?
It is a faith based. Well, okay, I'm gonna not let me not pull on my okay. Yeah. Religion is just the thing in which justifies why life is for many people. It is fantastical as well. It is surreal. It is you have to believe it before you see it. Um and it just helps ground people in their, I don't know, day-to-day lives and reality.
So it's basically still dealing with the supernatural, except in a more organized version.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay. The fun part in scholarly circles is that these two terms kind of overlap, not from an etymological standpoint, but from like a general consensus. Because let's take it. I'm a very old school history fan. I go to the sources. Okay. I define the terms. So where does the term magic come from?
Yeah.
I would be bold enough to say that magician and magic started off as kind of a slur.
Ooh.
Because
okay.
Because the term, originally the term used to determine people belonging either to a certain working class of Persian priests or a certain tribe from which those priests stemmed from. So I will also take the liberty of opening up some books and some things I've got on my computer just so I don't feed you guys false information.
Okay.
So this term can be dated back to the 6th century before Christ. And like the scholarly consensus considers that it basically boiled down to a type of religious worker. Priest, but not really. Okay. And from that Persian magu, the Greeks take on the term magos, which will later give us mage and magician, and their practice itself becomes magia, or magic.
Wait, did you say magua?
No, maya. So it's the
no. The other one,
magia. It's very hard to pronounce the Greek diphthongs. I don't do it perfectly either.
Okay. No, it's okay. I just thought you were talking about the characters from Final Fantasy as well, and I was like, "Ooh, is that a correlation?" Because it's a little
could be.
But anyway, Go
Could
on, go
be. So one of the first people that mentioned these guys is actually a name you hear dropped a lot, namely Herodotus, the so-called father of history.
I was gonna say, wait a minute, I don't actually hear him a lot, but go on.
I mean, for us historians, we've heard his name enough that he's already boring.
Yeah. Okay.
So he defines the Magoi as members of a tribe that were that formed the court officials and advisors of the Persian king during the Achaemenid Empire. And besides the paperwork and the bureaucracy and all the fun admin stuff, they also had to do religious duties like handling sacrifices and interpreting dreams. And in certain variations, even astrology. Astrology is a very deeply ancient Middle Eastern practice that we got through the Greeks, but in its origins, it's very Babylonian, Mesopotamian.
Okay.
So
this is in correlation to like the I guess I should wait, but at what point does it become like a slur? Because it feels very much like it's building up to be somebody of like great power and prestige.
yeah, but these people end up living in Greece after the wars with the Persians. So they're basically immigrants / war refugees / people left over in Greece from the retreating Persian armies. And
okay.
this is where the negative connotation starts to take hold. So this is originally part of the Greek war propaganda against the Persians. It's a very us versus them kind of thing. So our priests are holy, they do things by the book, they do things right, they possess supernatural abilities bestowed to them by the gods. The Persian priests are charlatans, they're scammers, they're tricksters, they're out in it for the money. They're not like our guys. So it's basically priests shunning other priests by calling them scammers. Sorry.
Ooh. Interesting. And so okay.
The thing that ticks them off the most is these either actual magoi that end up in Greece or pretend to be magoi, because the term it was sort of like a slur. It had negative connotations, but it did come with a certain prestige. Like these were people who can interpret dreams, read birth charts, read star signs, tell the future, do a couple of like they were learned people.
Right.
But they would share their knowledge in unconventional means and for unconventional benefits, like for food, for lodging, or stuff like this. To a point in which the Greek antiquity actually develops a second term. So there is the term magos. Loses part of its negative connotation and ends up determining a professional practitioner of these arts. So a professional dream interpreter, a professional astrologer, a professional advisor, whereas you get the term mantis or ayirtes for those who just did it as a side gig. But itinerant practitioners, if you want the academic term, but we would say the guys that did it part-time, you know?
The hobbyists.
Yeah, the hobby. It's not a hobbyist, it's more like the side gig guys, you know? So the guys that just did it just to round up the cash.
Okay.
And there is another distinction that we are left with from the Greeks. Also, the term mantis gives us all those forms of interpreting the future that end in mancy in English. Okay, the interpretation of dreams,
Oh.
oniromancy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The palmistry, which academically is called hieromancy. So hieros, the palm, mantia, the art of telling the future by the palm of your hand.
Oh.
All the things that end in mancy have to do with
Yeah.
telling the future.
Even necromancy?
Yes, telling the future via calling the dead.
Oh,
Necron,
cool.
dead, mancia, telling the future. Telling the future with the help of the dead. Necromancy. And we've got necromancy in the Bible just to foreshadow something.
That's Jesus, right? No,
Nope.
different.
That's in the Old Testament.
Okay, different. That's different. Okay.
So they do another division. And this is a very interesting one.
Okay.
They have a specific type of these practitioners, both mages and mantis, that specialize in potions and poisons, more often in poisons than in potions, which are the pharmakoi, from which let's get into anthropology a little.
Okay.
For example, in Romanian and in some Balkan languages, we get two terms, but we get the positive one through the long way around and the negative one through the short way around. So the positive one that we also have in English is pharmacy. So pharmacists used to be people specializing initially in herbal remedies, and then they bled into the guys that sell you aspirin.
Right.
But Romanian, for example, has pharmacie, so the pharmacy, which is the positive origin that didn't come directly from Greek. It came to us from Greek via Latin and then French, so with a 700-year detour.
Okay.
The native term that we got from that pharmakoi is pharmic, which means charm. Both in the positive and in the negative sense. So you could be charming as a person, or you could put a charm on someone. Same origin, the same term, two radically different words in the same language.
Interesting. Language is very fun. Where freaking Alex hiding right now?
So we've got these guys that, like I said, they're immigrants. They're different. They're basically refugees from a country we are constantly on and off fighting with. Even by the general populations, those guys aren't seen as nice people, and they do shady things for food.
Okay.
The extra part of the other type of practitioners, because you have some native practitioners of some sort of magic. Those are guys that you want to stay away from a different reason, and this is more like hygienic, because they are the goetes. The goetes that, the term turns into Goetia or Goetia, and starts within the early Middle Ages, and from them on to determine any type of magic. And this term is very hard to pinpoint. It's presumed to come from Gos, which is a type of funerary song. It's still prevalent in the Balkans. It's like a mourning song. So it's very tied into funerary practices and preparing the body for burial. So these aren't people that you call at like your Sunday roasts. Like, those aren't people you hang out with. So they have this air of mystique around them. So basically that is magic in a nutshell, or at least everything's pretty clear and straightforward. And the main problem that the Greeks have with their practices, not with them as people, but with their practices, is something you inadvertently touched on earlier. They mess with the schedule.
Ooh.
So they mess with the schedule. Our priests do certain rituals in a certain way on certain dates because that's how it's supposed to be done. You can't read the future whenever someone tips you. You can't interpret dreams if the stars are not aligned properly because you might offend that god or the other god or the other god. You can't fuck with the status quo.
Yeah. The accessibility that they were offering was very disruptive to the
and it's basically unfair competition to the priests you already have. Like, okay, you want your dreams interpreted, go to the priest of Apollo. But the priest of Apollo asks me for like 10 apples, whereas this guy's gonna do it for 2. You know?
Yeah. Oh. So they wanted to take away their competition then. Eliminating the competition by using the term. And okay, so then at what point did the word, like, is it just a 20th century thing that we've been sort of reclaiming the word magic, or people have been reclaiming the word magic, or at what point did it sort of transition back into something that's like fun and mystical and whatever?
Well, we've got a long way to go to there, but basically No, I'm trying to get through the boring history bit as quickly as possible so we can get to the fun stuff.
Perfect, no worries.
But it was a long process, and it wasn't always a bad thing. Like, magic was never seen as something intrinsically evil. It was inconvenient. It affected the status quo. It upset the general priestly class and the social order, but it wasn't something intrinsically evil. At least for the Greeks, whereas but this ties into a different thing. How is this magic performed? But this magic is performed via binding a spirit. The Greeks call it a daemon. It has almost nothing to do with the modern interpretation of the term demon, but that's where it came from.
And you're talking about the spelling that's like D-A-E-M-O-N
in English.
Oh, not D-A-I-M-O-N. That's different then too.
No, it's D-A-E-M-O-N.
Okay.
Because it's the Greek spelling is delta alpha iota mi omega ni. So, like, if you really want how it's spelled. But it's binding a spirit. And keep that word in mind, to bind.
To bind.
Because that's I'll spoil it for you, and then we'll expand later, but I'll spoil it for you. This is what religion means. Religare, to rebind.
Ooh. Wait, religion means that? Oh my god, I have a lot of
one of the interpretations of religion is to rebind. Who's binding what, or who's binding who, remains to be seen at a later point. But basically, both magic and religion have to do with binding something supernatural to a person.
Do you think, okay, this is me just throwing a silly goose idea in there, but you know how they have the very provocative, like, BDSM binding of people? Do you think that has any correlation? Like, is there sort of this like religious, like, what is it called whenever you're trying to like defy religion by, I know that it's like it's probably a Japanese practice, but I don't know if that has anything.
Shibari?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. So I'm extrapolating a lot.
You're extrapolating because the Greeks weren't king shaming that much. So they wouldn't have necessarily seen any type of like sexual activity surrounding these rituals as anything particularly disruptive.
Interesting.
Even less so in Persia and the ancient Mesopotamia, where they had the practice of sacred prostitution. So they had the tradition of a couple of centuries of having sex in the temples of Ishtar, for example, as a way to worship the goddess. Like sacred prostitution was a thing. Priestesses would sell their bodies to men or other women as well, in exchange for offerings for the temple. So the Persians were very much okay with fucking around with magic, and I use that term literally.
Okay, we don't have to talk about it right now, but can we have a future talk specifically about sacred prostitution?
Yeah, sex and magic. Yeah, it's not my strong point. It's not my strong point. But
sorry. Okay, sex and magic. That's sick. Okay, sorry. Please continue with the boring history.
Okay, I'll boil down certain things. So, there's two other things that we care about. So one of them is this binding of demons that ends up being called katadesmos. So binding of these daemons. And there's also a general fear of these daemons, which becomes known as an excessive fear. So people start, when the general populace starts to believe in daemons and people who can bind them and do all sorts of things with the help of daemons, there's this general paranoia. And that paranoia has a name, desidaimonia. So an increased fear of these demons. And now these terms start bleeding into Latin. I'm skipping a couple of centuries just to keep things. Okay. So magos, and magos becomes magus. Magia becomes magia. Desidaimonia becomes superstitio.
Oh. That's fun.
Daimon becomes daemon or demon. The katadesmos, so the binding, becomes defixio. That's also a word for binding. And the least used one becomes one of the most used ones in Latin and in the Middle Ages later on, which is pharmakos, becomes veneficium, or even worse, maleficium. So veneficium means to make venom, like I'm very roughly translating, to make venom upon someone or imbibe them with venom. And maleficium, it's malefacere, it's literally doing harm upon someone.
Yeah, okay.
So they're tied into magic, but not too much. And when this magic, with the move from the Roman kingdom to the Roman Republic, magic becomes a business. We have magic artifacts from Republican and even Imperial age, the Imperial age in Rome. We've got two types of artifacts. One's a lot more common and a lot more simple, and they're the little amulets for various things. I think the most popular ones were health, money, luck, fertility, and sexual prowess, because we mentioned that.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it's basically ancient Roman Viagra.
Hell yeah. In a talisman you put in your pocket.
Yep. And those are the simple ones and the fairly common ones. The ones that are very Roman are the so-called tabula de fictionis. So binding tablets would be the exact translation. Is that the talisman?
I was literally thinking that, but basically. I did not want to flow. Basically. I love it.
These little, so they're small tablets. They're about, I don't know, give you an example. I was like almost the size of 2 postage stamps, but who the hell uses stamps anymore. It's like half a business card.
Yeah.
Made up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so like half a credit card, just to give you a visual reference.
Yeah.
They're made out of lead, and they're very specific curses against someone. So if you had an issue with a neighbor, with a friend, with someone, and you wanted to curse something specific, okay, you would go to one of these magi, and you would say, okay, Flavia stole my boyfriend. I want Flavia's hair to fall off. Like, okay, it's gonna be 10 sesterti or something, 10 denarii or something like that. So probably around the cost, they were fairly affordable, which is the weird part. So just to give you a reference, about the cost of a liter of wine, so like a half gallon of wine, kind of roughly the same thing. So fairly affordable for the general population. And the mage would take that.
They were made out of lead, right? Just to clarify.
Lead, copper. It's lead darkens as it goes old.
Okay.
Did someone say wine? Welcome. Lead darkens as it ages, and they saw that as the curse taking root. So it's a very, very sympathetic and like visual reference for that.
That's fun though. Good. Okay.
And you'd have this little tablet, and they would scribble some mystical symbols. Most often than not, they were either Hebrew letters, but complete nonsense, but they were Hebrew letters. Random geometrical symbols, a couple of Greek words, and most of the incantation was in Latin. And went something like, okay, by the powers of insert random names here, that were technically the demons, but they would be random names. By the power of Bobby and Jibby Bibby and Zgibby Bibby, Flavia's hair will fall out within the span of 3 days, for she is a wicked woman who talks ill about her best friend, yada yada yada. Take that, roll it up or bend it. GBBB is innocent, basically. They would roll it up and bury it. That's why we found a lot of them, because people buried them in fairly remote places and forgot about them. That's why we have them by the bucketful.
Okay.
So it becomes a business, and because it becomes a business, it starts to be regulated by the Roman Republic, to a point in which, let me look this up so I don't give you the wrong date. So the what is normally known in Roman law as the law of the 12 tables. So it's considered because it was written on 12 slates of stone.
Okay. And
this was promulgated in 449 BC. So that's the first rule. But it's not a law against magic overall.
Okay.
It is so the exact wording from the tables is that someone will be punished qui malum carmen incantasit. So someone who incantasit is chants. Yeah. Chants evil songs. Malum carmen literally translates as evil songs. So you're allowed to do magic, just not bad magic. So you're allowed to do magic, just don't curse people with it.
Ooh, interesting. So they were getting wise to people's tricks.
Yeah. And they did. Yeah, and it's a business. It's completely a business, and the main issue with the Romans is don't mess don't mess public safety, the common good, and don't mess with the state.
And the state and the religion pretty much were like intertwined. Is that correct?
Yeah, because you have, so in the Republican era, not so much, but once we get into the Imperial era, one of the titles that the emperor had was Pontifex Maximus, Grand Priest. It's a title that is now inherited directly from the Roman emperors by the Pope.
Oh,
same terminology. Pontifex Maximus, the highest of priests.
Okay.
And slowly, once Christianity rolls in, there is a time. So there is a time between the first and the start of the 4th century. So the first 2 or 3 centuries of Christian practice, where by certain Roman pagan scholars, Christian practices are seen as magic.
Ooh.
What's the word I'm looking for? Taking communion was seen as magic. Why are you dipping wine in bread and sharing it amongst you? What is that? You're trying to form like a secret society or something, or share some kind of powers or some kind of knowledge without the state knowing. You are doing magic.
Which then led to the potential persecution, yeah? And that's why
I mean, most of the reasons why the... mostly sharing germs. I mean, if the wine is strong enough, given the fact that the Roman wine was really, really strong, I don't know how many germs they had.
Happy Easter to you, by the way, says Alex.
Yes, happy Easter to those of you who celebrate it this Sunday.
Adding flavor to bread. What about miracles?
I mean, that's a good point. So, and it ties into the same thing that I said about the Greeks. So if it's not about the act itself, it's about who performs it. Our priests do rituals and they're good for everybody. Their priests do magic.
Yeah.
It bleeds from Greek thought into Roman thought, and from Roman thought into Christian thought. We do miracles. We have charisma from Greek, or mana. We have the power of God bestowed upon us. Okay, we are initiated. We are blessed. Even though it's kind of funny that the act of anointing a priest or a bishop is very similar. It's the laying of hands. It's the laying of hands. The laying of hands did two things. So it's even now the Greek Orthodox Church anointing a priest is called hierotonia. So it's literally the laying of hands. The laying of hands did two things. So it's the way Christ bestowed the Holy Spirit upon the apostles. Not the Holy Spirit, sorry, the right of anointing other bishops to the apostles. It's how the other apostles made bishops and priests. But it's also the way a part of the Roman priests were initiated. And another thing, and this bleeds into, this is a little tidbit for our WoW fans out there.
World of Warcraft.
For our World of Warcraft fans, why does the Paladin's strongest healing spell, why is it called Lay on Hands?
I don't know. Is it because of what you just said?
Yeah, because the second thing that... So it's first the apostles, then the bishops, then even some kings later on in the Middle Ages. Some kings were thought to be able to heal any disease by laying their hands on a sick person because they were anointed.
Yeah. That's cool. It's all about, like, the perception, right? Like, controlling the
Yeah,
narrative.
basically.
Because priests are handsy, well,
Basically. And
Oh.
this ties into a very very um, mentality. So if you bleed into the Christian period,
Mm. Mhm, mhm.
um so we do have a couple of synods that kind of highlight like a couple of things. So for example, the Synod of Elvira in 306
Mm.
bans priests from according the last rites to any Christian who practiced maleficium, so practiced cursing. Um, of the Council of Ankira, a couple of years later in 314, bans, so not bans, but condemns Christians who practice divinations to excessive penitence. To up until
Whoa.
375, from the Council of Laodicea, or Laodicea, or however you want to call it, in 375, that specifically, this is the first one that specifically says Christians should not practice magic.
Mm.
And they do tie it into a couple of Bible quotes, especially from the Old Testament. So this
Yeah.
is very interesting, and this ties into the Jewish view of magic, because later on in the Middle Ages, once Kabbalah opens up to the world, Jews make a very clear distinction between mysticism and magic, because we share like Christians and Jews share a good chunk of the Old Testament, namely the 5 books of Moses, the first 5 books of Moses. But you've got bits in Deuteronomy, you've got bits in Exodus, you've got bits in Kings where magic happens. And we do have, and this is one of the big paradoxes. So Christianity, slowly but surely, as they gain power, so Christianity becomes a religio licita, so a permissible religion in the Roman Empire in 313, the Edict of Milan, and it becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire in 326 with the Edict of Thessaloniki. And slowly but surely from there on, they start to move away from paganism. They move away from ancient practices, and this is one interesting thing. All across the Middle Ages, if you take any list of demons, literally any list of demons compiled up until the 1800s, odds are you're gonna find a Greek god, a Babylonian god, a Roman god slipped in through the cracks.
Into the demon list?
Yeah, into the demon list. Like if you take, so let's take one of the most obsessively compiled lists of demons, the Pseudomonarchia Demonarum. It's 1468 if I'm not mistaken. It's got Zeus and Apollo and Artemis on it.
Oh, they're not supposed to be in there.
Because they're not demons. Because they're not demons. And they do the first, like, literally Christian perspective on magic. We get 2 centuries later in the 5th century by Saint Augustine, who in his work, which is called De Divinatione Demonum, so of telling the future with the help of demons would be the correct translation.
I like that.
Yeah. He breaks these supernatural happenings into two aspects. So he makes a clear distinction between miracula. So those are the miracles done with the help of divine grace and the power of God and so on. And mira, which are supernatural manifestations, intercessed or intermediated or done with the help of demons, with the sole purpose of cheating the practitioner and moving him away from God.
Ah, interesting. The motivation.
And because he says that he even says that like Roman medical practices, their common superstitions, wearing amulets, and divination are seen as either pointless, pagan, or, especially when it comes to divinations, he makes a very, very clear point that knowing the future is something that only God can do. Like that's something only God is allowed to. God is allowed to know the future.
Right.
So basically, just to I'm not gonna translate everything I wrote here word for word because we've already lost an hour.
Well, I was gonna say, make sure people know that this is from like your, if it's from your work, make sure people know that, or if it's from like a piece of literature that you're reading, like.
Yeah, no, I'm literally translating from my master's thesis right now. That's why I'm stumbling, because I need to translate the most of the bits from Romanian and the Latin bits from Latin.
See, we have 1 hour. See, Arcana, thank you so much. Yes. Also, Cram says, just as a side note, just to see if it correlates to the current focus, was there something about people who can't read thinking people talking about spelling of words being casting spells? I don't know if that's just as far as like the word.
The distinction kind of works in English. It doesn't work necessarily in other languages, because spell, with the sense of magic, spell, and spelling are related etymologically in English. It's not valid for most languages, but there could have been. So because most of these mages would have spoken, or at least gave the impression that they spoke other languages, it could have fooled like the general populace. Like I said, the Roman Empire, by the time it's Christian, is bilingual, so it's Greek and Latin. But you had people speaking Persian, you had people speaking Coptic, you had people speaking pretty much any Germanic languages. So that could have been seen very well as, they're casting a spell. Like if I do it in the right intonation, I could read you my shopping list in Latin and I could freak you out.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I could read you my shopping list. Because it's also a matter of intention. So basically, we get to the Middle Ages, where we kind of tolerate magic.
Okay.
We don't ban it outright. So the whole thing with the witch hunts and the like outright banning of magic and persecuting people, that starts in the Renaissance. That starts in the late 1400s. But up until then, up until then, it's kind of tolerated. You've got different communities doing different things. So and there is this part of like theology that kind of deals with the mystical aspect of things that could be seen as magic, but it's kind of tolerated because we do have one of the best documented magicians in the Middle Ages is in the Bible.
Name him. Drop his name right now.
Solomon.
Wait,
King Solomon.
What did he do? Can you give us a quick rundown of what he did?
So, King Solomon gets this ring. This is a mix of biblical text and Jewish mythology. So we know Solomon was an actual king. We do have the historical accounts of him. So he was an actual guy.
Real guy.
And it is said that with the help of a blessed ring and a seal. So we're told that there was a seal on his ring, and with that seal he could control demons. And the first temple of Jerusalem was that massive and built that fast because it was built by coercing demons into doing it.
And when you say seal, you're talking about like a signet on the ring or something that
a magical symbol.
Yeah. Okay, because very quickly my brain went to an actual seal, and I wanted to make sure there's a distinction just in case. Because if you're dumb like me, you would have thought otherwise. But thank you.
No. So what is usually depicted as the seal of Solomon, in its most simple iteration, is basically a hexagram within a circle. So a Star of David, the 6-pointed cross. Then later on, various esoteric traditions would add to it either the tetragrammaton, so the four letters that make up the name of God in Hebrew. So it's YHVH. It's Yaw Heu Vav Heu. Yav Hey Vav Hey. Sorry, I don't speak Hebrew. And with a lot of decorations to a point in which, if I'm not mistaken, there was Grimoire N700 or something about that thing with the spelling. I said it could be. Doesn't ring a bell, Cram. To be honest, doesn't ring a bell. But did I give the disclaimer that I haven't touched this research in like 10 years, so I might be drawing blanks on certain things?
Yeah, everybody keep that in mind. Also, Scald has another comment that I think might be of interest to you as well.
Let me just scroll up. But interesting to me how this impact our modern. I'm having serious trouble keeping up with chat, so my bad, because I got into the zone and I started rambling.
No, it's okay. That's why I'm kind of just, you're good.
Super interesting to me how this impacts our modern ideas surrounding mythology too. Like, I'm listening to this and remembering the research I did into how D&D founded its pantheons and developed its presentation of gods. For example, a lot of the original D&D pantheon was taken from ancient depictions of pantheons. And it's interesting how other pantheons as gods were turned into demons, and how that pattern of storytelling repeats with something such as D&D. Yeah, basically because
people, right?
People are gonna people. And the further away you are from something in time and space, the more likely you're to put your own spin on it. So I could ask you, for example, what you did yesterday, and you could tell me in fairly good detail. But if I asked you what were you eating 4 years ago today, you won't remember. You won't remember. Is esotericism in the realm of things like chakras and kundalini? It is, but that's more Eastern esotericism, whereas my specialty is in the Western side of things. Esoteric just means something that you're wholly incapable of understanding. Not necessarily. So let's discuss this term a little. So,
yeah, good question.
Esoteric, in its core meaning, means something that is hidden. And like, if you take the Encyclopedia Britannica, this is a freaking tautology because it defines one term with 3 synonyms. It says hidden, mystical, or occult. Mystical means hidden, occult means hidden. It's three shades of saying it's something hidden.
Yeah.
But it started to define knowledge, like spiritual knowledge, only meant for people who were initiated, only for scholars. To a point in which one of the reasonings, and I'm slowly moving towards the witch hunts and stuff like that. One of the reasonings why female practitioners and female witches were persecuted harder than the male practitioners was, I'm sorry for saying that this is probably the most misogynistic thing I said in my life, but they're not smart enough. Women aren't smart enough to deal with demons. We men, we're smart enough. We can trick them. We can make sure we're safe. Women aren't smart enough. They can't go through all the necessary protection steps to make sure that they don't succumb to demons. And demons, because demons themselves are mostly male, they will seduce women sexually, and women can't resist the temptation, and that's how we get sort of all kinds of demon spawn, and they meet of the incubus and women getting essayed at night, and kids being born out of wedlock, and people with very, very vivid imaginations. I mean, the tism makes it pretty easy to get, just need to spice things. So there is a tolerance for these practices all across the Middle Ages. It's mainly ignored. If it's not something very, very socially disruptive, it's kind of brushed away. You do have so once universities start showing up in Europe in the early 11th century, you do have theologians who start getting into the very nitty-gritty of the text. Okay, how were the miracles performed? What does it mean to be imbued with the Holy Spirit? What happens when you become a priest? What happens when you become a bishop? How is this charisma, this holy gift, passed down from from Jesus to the apostles, from the apostles to bishops, from bishops to priests, and so on and so on and so on, to a point in which, if Christian sources are to believe, there's an uninterrupted line of initiation between any priest, any Catholic or Orthodox priest out there, and Jesus himself.
Wow.
I'm gonna doubt that. Respectfully, I'll put a little question mark over that.
Pushing B or X or whatever for doubt.
Yeah. You know the social experiment of one child being told a sentence, and then the sentence is passed through the whole class, and the last student says something entirely different. Basically, but it's a game over here in the UK. It's called Chinese Whispers. So yeah, the more you repeat things, the more diluted they get. But like I said, you do have kings who allegedly perform miracles. You do have the tradition of Arthurian novels that get very popular across most of Western Europe, where you have Merlin, who starts off as a madman in the forest in the 6th century in the Black Book of Carmarthen, and now I'm digging deep into my niche, which is Merlin. So he starts off as a madman in the woods. He slowly becomes a diviner and a kind of like a wizard figure. When he crosses the pond, well, when I say the pond, I mean the English Channel, and he starts getting picked up by French authors, he becomes a devin and a prophet. So divine is not divine, like he's not holy, but he's blessed in some way, and a prophet. Which prophet is a very, very Christian term, like not Christian, but very deeply rooted in the Abrahamic religions. So he's not pagan anymore. Up until, I think, Thomas Mallory in La Mort d'Arthur in 1492 kind of shifts him back to a semi-pagan figure. But we're all pretty chill. Up until we start getting our friends, the Inquisition.
Oh, yeah.
So the Inquisition.
The fucking Inquisition, yeah.
Yeah, the Inquisition initially was supposed to do what it says on the tin. They were supposed to be inquisitive. They were supposed to be the questioning body. Therefore, I'm going to break some hearts here. The Inquisition never killed anybody, never executed anybody, because the same acts, the same papers that found the Inquisition around the 1250s ban any member of the clergy from spilling blood. Therefore, they acted as judge and jury, but never as executioner.
So they never got their hands dirty.
Yeah. And ironically, the Vatican is the last vestige left out of the Roman Empire. Yes, basically, like admin-wise, yes. For all intents and purposes, the Pope has, like I said earlier, inherited titles directly from the Roman Emperor, including but not limited to highest of priests, Pontifex Maximus.
So we can summon. No, Benny. We're not summoning any demons today. We're talking demon, not summoning demon.
But their main concern, so the joke is, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Why the Spanish Inquisition? Because
why the Spanish Inquisition? Yeah,
because the Inquisition wasn't formed against Catholics. It was formed against heretics, which is Christianity's biggest concern up until the Reformation.
Yeah.
And why Spain exactly? So for context, Spain goes through a process called the Reconquista, or the reconquering, from the 7th century, when most of that little coin-shaped piece of the Iberian Peninsula, which we now lovingly call Spain and Portugal, was captured by the Muslim forces of the Umayyad Caliphate, up until 1492, when the Emir of Granada surrenders the last piece of Muslim-owned land on the Iberian Peninsula. So it's a span of roughly 7 centuries. You had Christians and Muslims interacting with each other. And you had a lot of converts. But there was this growing fear that they weren't genuine converts, to a point in which, because these converts were either former Jews or former Muslims, one of the strongest trials was having them drink alcohol, so drink wine and eat pork, which are like the two big no-nos in Islam and in Judaism. Especially the eating pork.
Yeah.
They later bled into seeing anything as potential heresy. The thing that annoys them most about the witches isn't that they're consorting with Satan. That's the excuse. It's people coming together outside of the church, outside of public view, and discussing things. They could have done anything. They could have thrown freaking barbecues.
Yeah.
But you're meeting outside of the allowed play area, as one of my anthropology professors used to say. So we're giving you this play area. You're meeting around here. We don't like that. So we're going to pursue that. And that later on in the accursed year of 1485 bleeds into this little baby here.
Just a wee baby.
Which
the
is
hammer of witches,
most often known as the Malleus Maleficarum.
Oh,
Which this is the Christopher Mackey translation that I have here. So it's basically an inquisitor's handbook about how to spot a witch, what are the telling signs of a witch, but something little controversial. This is the last in a series of books that were very trendy during the Middle Ages, which is the Malleus books, the hammer of something. So when you hammer down something, you basically eliminate it.
So is this like
The
those books that we have now of like, or what we did in like the 90s of like, like the dummy guide to insert
yeah,
whatever it is you need to know?
It's
Oh.
basically baby's first witch hunting manual.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Okay.
Except like
Oh.
this is the shortened version and this is the English translation, the origin. So this has what 655 pages. The Latin one is 2 volumes, a lot thicker. This is like condensed and boiled down a little.
Gee.
And just to read you the chapter heads quickly. So what do the chapters tell us from the Maleus Maleficarum? Give me just a second.
Yeah, take your time.
I didn't put any bookmarks in this and now I'm starting to regret it. And I don't remember if the... Oh, there we go. Table of contents. So... this isn't helping. Yeah, I can't find anything. But basically what it says is how to spot witches. How to find where they my digital versions are a little more helpful.
Look, we like this information. We want to know it, and we want to know the facts. So you take your time. I could do a distracting dance to help fill the space. She turned me into a newt.
Yeah, no, usually they have many cats dance around nude in the forest, or really like plants. Basically.
Yeah.
Basically, fair. And the one of the
You're fine, Benny.
One of the controversial thing that I found in the Maleus Maleficarum is that the Inquisitor who wrote it, so this is the work of a German Catholic priest called Heinrich Kramer. He says that in order for a witch to perform witchcraft, you need 3 elements.
Okay.
You need the evil intention of the witch, the help of the devil. So we're cutting off the middleman. We're not dealing with any small time demon. We're dealing with the big guy himself.
Yeah, straight to the boss.
And drum roll, the permission of God.
Oh.
The permission of God.
Why is he in there?
Because nothing happens without God's will. Especially in Renaissance Christianity.
Why not good intentions and help of angel? Not on our watch.
Because that ties into something else, which was it's not magic because we do it.
Yes, and oh my gosh, I kept wanting to correlate that and bring it back to that conversation because as we continue to go, that's the through line. Magic is considered magic and heretic if it is not the kind of magic you're practicing.
Yeah, and it boils down to you have lists of angels, like you have lists of demons, you have lists of angels, and slowly in the late Middle Ages and in the Renaissance, you start getting these books written by priests. You get the grimoire of an assumed Pope Honorius, who wrote a grimoire who teaches you which angels to summon, which archangels to summon for various things. In the same time, in that very sneaky Jewish community in the Iberian Peninsula, you start getting the quintessential work of the Kabbalah, which is written there, which is the Sefer Zohar, or the Zohar as we know it in English. And those things are tolerated. We're tolerating things because we are emulating prophets, we're emulating biblical figures, we're emulating Solomon, who bound demons to build the temple in honor of God. We are emulating Moses. We are emulating Noah. We are emulating the good guys. So, for fuck's sake, Moses turns his staff into a snake. He turns water into blood. And then he calls down the plagues. But you could say the plagues are like he was basically the messenger. But he turns his staff into a snake to prove to Pharaoh that his God is the one true God. And then he turns the water of the Nile into blood by dipping his hand in it. And by emulating those miracles, you get into something called thaumaturgy, or miracle working.
Ooh. Who mentioned miracles earlier? Somebody did.
I think Arcana said something about miracles.
Yeah,
we're Christians against Christians against magic, baptized in a water ritual, drinking the blood of Christ, the wine, or the body of Christ, the bed. But Christians are so against witchcraft. I mean, like I said, I think the main takeaway from this part, because I want to finish with the historical stuff and get into the fun, like personal stuff and more interesting, like folk tales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You do have thaumaturgy. So thaumaturgy literally means wonder working. And it's the art of, it's literally by Christian definition, it's the art of performing miracles.
Yeah.
So those are the good kind of magic. Okay? So those are the good kind of magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've got, I think the word comes in pretty late in English, so it bleeds into English through John Dee's work in the 1500s. Also, another reading suggestion: Jason Lau, John Dee and the Empire of Angels. Really good book if you want to know. John Dee was Elizabeth I's court magician and court astrologer. Probably the richest magician in Europe. Because second in fame only to Nostradamus, but a lot richer than and a lot better traveled than Nostradamus.
That's sick.
Basically, to sum it up, and I know I might upset some people by saying this, but when we interact with the supernatural in a very organized setting by a very organized calendar, we call it religion. When we engage with the supernatural for our personal purposes, not necessarily nefarious, but for our personal needs, sporadically, and within the confines of our own house, most often than not, we call it magic. There is Christian magic, there is Islamic magic, there is Jewish magic, there is magic in every sort of religion. We just so we don't step on toes, we call it the esoteric branch of those religions. For those of you in chat who grew up in either Catholic or Orthodox communities, you know that maybe your mothers or your grandmothers had little practices that they did that seemed holy because they would make the sign of the cross, so they would say a little prayer on it. Those have nothing to do with Christianity. Nothing to do with Christianity. Okay, I was talking to, and Johnny had nothing to do with these, basically. You never
my
mentioned
grandma,
these books while I was down in Manchester. I'd have asked to borrow them and offer you a library card. Tara, I offered you to come over, mates. Like, come over. I have books to show you. Yeah, Tera's a friend from around the north of England, and he's a very knowledgeable scholar of esoteric matters as well. As is
That's
Minion,
fun. That's
as is
awesome.
Minion. So I do have some community members who are very well versed in magic and
Smarty
esotericism.
pants. Love it.
Yeah, no, it's my little coven.
I won't tell the church, I promise.
I mean, I'm Orthodox. We never burned witches. Technically. Yeah, for the sake of full disclaimer, I was brought up Orthodox. I wanted to be a priest until I was like 13. So by all means, there isn't a way of disaffiliating yourself from the Orthodox Church in Romania officially, unless you get excommunicated, which is very hard to do and not worth the hassle. But traditionally, through popular Christianity, through folk Christianity, if you don't set foot in a church for 7 years in a row, you're considered unbaptized. So I take that box. So I like to consider myself a non-denominational, non-practicing pagan.
I love it. We talked about that a little bit off screen, so that's fun. An omnist? Religions across the border, sort of like
Oh, yeah. Omnis, from the Latin word omnia, which means everything.
Hey, yeah, that's cool. I like that. I kind of feel similar. I can kind of relate, Noxus.
Yeah, but you have a lot of, like, there are a lot of practices in our day-to-day life, because I did promise we'll talk about superstition a little. Yeah. So give me a second to actually wet my whistle, so Nikki, just go.
Well, I got you. I'm gonna catch up on chat with y'all, okay? I'm assuming agnostic Christian, but I tell people that I'm Catholic because I don't want to have to explain to others my belief system. That's understandable. Sometimes I would like to think that there are plenty of people who have a complex way of viewing their spirituality or their religion. And because we live in a world where there are so many binaries, it can be just easier to say that you align with something people can relate to better than having to explore a full-on definition. I get that. I call myself a religious free agent because I never completed the Catholic confirmation. So you're ready to be taken up by anybody. I grew up Christian, but now I'm atheist, but I probably fall more under omnis, like Noxus. Yeah. No, Gnostic Christian. Got it. Okay, heard, Benny. I didn't know that. What? I've never heard of Gnostic like that. Yeah. Because Bendo also wanted to become a priest until 10 years old or so. Hey, Arcana, that's cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Gnosticism is a very interesting. So the Gnostics, their term comes from gnosis, from knowledge. That's why I don't like the term agnostic, because it implies you don't have knowledge. So the reason why you're agnostic would be oversimplifying that you're stupid. So that's why I tend to avoid the word agnostic. But the Gnostics were probably one of the first heresies eliminated. They had extra books to the Bible, so they recognized more books than the general Orthodox consensus, and this was before the Grand Schism, so the division between Orthodox and Catholics wasn't made. But they brought on some very mystical, very strong academic concepts. They have very strong Zoroastrian influences. They consider that the God that created the earth is an evil God, and that the good God just allows things to happen. It ties into Zoroastrian theology, where you have the good God Angramanyu, and the evil god, which is Ahura Mazda or Ahriman. And basically we're all trapped in like a matrix-like thing. This is the Matrix before the Matrix was a thing. So we're all like trapped in the Matrix thing, and with enough knowledge and enough wisdom and enough capacity to permeate the mysteries and see through the cracks in theological writing, we would reach the Ein Sof, the prime wisdom, which would allow us to escape from this whole creation, this whole matrix. It would like us to escape the matrix. There's a lot of Gnostic theology in the Matrix series.
That's I need to watch The Matrix again, because I know we've talked about gender with The Matrix and that being a very interesting kind of commentary, but there's clearly a lot I missed when I watched this goddamn movie. Okay. I like what Tara said as well. I believe personally, religion has been a way of the powers that be to control our outlook on ourselves as humans. We are more than capable of what Yahweh could do and more. We are all capable of divination and psychic practices, but why would they want a populace they cannot control? Interesting.
Sethian Gnosticism. Sethian, like, if we're talking branches of Gnosticism, it kind of bled out. The Sethian Gnosticism tends to be a little darker, but I think Gnosticism itself and all the heresies are worth its own talk, because that's a lot more academically dense, like why the general consensus of Christianity went against the Gnostics, and then the Cathars, and then the Arians, and a lot of like different things. But that's very, very deep theology. But you're on the right track, Tara.
Scald has a good question for you if you want to read that. Scald, yeah.
I've spoken at length with fellow writers about writing magic systems in fantasy and have come up with all sorts of things. Outside the fiction, though, I always have felt and believed that stories have power. That's why storytelling is crucial in its ability to teach and share experience. In your opinion, is there an esoteric that relates to that experience, feeling, and belief? So let me just read that again, because so storytelling is crucial. Yes, I agree that storytelling is crucial, and the problem with esoteric traditions that rely on storytelling is their oral traditions. There's very little written down, so that's the catch. If we're talking about shamanism, especially where it started, where the term started, the term is not Slavic, but it comes from the Siberian steppes. Most shamanic traditions have an oral tradition. They've probably bled out into various like folk Christian practices, but they are mainly oral traditions. And unfortunately, I think we've lost a huge wealth of knowledge by these oral traditions never being written down. People who knew stories who died before they got a chance to write them down, or actively refused to let themselves be recorded, either in text or audio or whatever. Because these were supposed to be sets of knowledge only meant for initiates. Not everybody does magic, not everybody is a shaman, not everybody is a priest, because not everybody has access or has been initiated. Initiation, both in priesthood and in most pagan traditions nowadays, is a big part of the thing. You need, it's what some rabbis, when discussing the Kabbalah, what some rabbis say, that they say Kabbalah's in the Torah. So everybody has access to the Torah. Everybody has access to the holy writings. But the Torah has 4 levels of understanding.
Okay.
It's the textual, the metaphorical, so it's the textual, So text as is written, the metaphorical, which is like seeing what they actually meant, the moral, and the metaphysical.
Okay.
And in order to move from these steps, so the first one you can learn by yourself. Anybody can pick up the Torah, read the 5 books of Moses, boom, you read the text. Seeing the subtext kind of requires guidance. Seeing the moral lessons in that text takes another level of guidance, and seeing the metaphysical takes the supreme level of guidance. And there are stages, like if you go into like Jewish mysticism, which is something I studied for a while. There are certain stages in your life where you are supposed to engage with these studies. So for example, traditionally, most Orthodox Jewish traditions, most Hasidim, say that you are not supposed to start learning about the Kabbalah until you're 40 and have at least 40, happily married, have at least 2 children.
Yeah.
They consider that at that point you have accumulated enough life experience to be capable to assimilate those lessons and understand the lessons that are given to you by one of your teachers, by one of your rabbis. Because the rabbi, that's what Rebbe in Hebrew, that's what it means. It means teacher. Spoiler alert, the apostles called Jesus Rebbe. No Bible you'll never find this in a Bible translation. When they call him, teacher, tell us. That word teacher is Rebbe. Rabbi.
Yeah. We won't be translating that anytime soon, though. Makes sense, though. Benny, I was just saying that the practice might have been similar in shamanism, and maybe now the term is used, but I'm guessing, and I could be completely wrong, if the term shamanism stems out of, you said it's a Slavic word?
It's technically not Slavic. It's from the populations in the Siberian steppes. I can't remember exactly which population's dialect it stems from, but it's very rooted in like Northern Europe, Northern Russia, Northeastern Europe kind of area geographically.
Okay. So then indigenous cultures, because Benny was saying that indigenous cultures also practice shamanism, which...
Yes and no. Depends on how you define shamanism.
And I think that's what I was trying to get at, is the definition, but still, I'm not at all the expert here.
Tengri, good point, Goth Boy. Yeah, Tengrinism is shamanic. So for those of you who don't know, Tengrinism is the traditional folk belief of the Mongols. Yeah, that is shamanic. Why I avoid using the term shaman for any population outside of the, let's say, North Eurasian area, is because the practices, though similar, are slightly different, and the words they use themselves to define themselves aren't shaman. No South American spiritual practitioner will ever call themselves a shaman, except maybe as a joke or for the sake of talking to tourists. Okay, if you go into Peru or Ecuador or any of those, you won't find a shaman. Like if you go to the market, excuse me, where can I find the village shaman? They're gonna look at you funny. You see, wrong area. They have curanderos, they have ayahuasqueros, they have vegetalistas. They don't have any, excuse my Spanish, they don't have any shamans because they have specialized in very specific things. Yeah, the practices are similar. You find similar practice even in sub-Saharan Africa, in voodoo and hoodoo and traditional faith practices that you have. So basically a shaman is an intermediary.
Okay.
between the real world and the spirit world. It's a very animistic belief. So animism, for those of you who don't know, is the belief that anything out there, any object, has its own spirit or soul.
Mhm.
What the shaman does is let himself be possessed by these souls in order to convey messages, heal diseases, bring on rain, good crops, divine the future, but that's a bit rarer.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I like using the terms specific and native to those cultures because it defines their main activity. So the shaman is more of a community spiritual guide. If you go
Mhm.
into Latin America specifically, I know because one of the people I worked with travels to Peru every year, has good working relationship with the ayahuasqueros, with the curanderos there. So I know a lot from his experience, and they call themselves, like, their main defining term is curandero, so healer. So they focus on the healing.
Yeah.
And you have
Yep.
subtypes of curanderos. You have the tabaqueros, which only heal with tobacco. Yes, tobacco is
Mhm.
used in spiritual practices. Big surprise.
Yep.
You
Yep.
have the
If you're
ayahuasqueros.
surprised.
Yeah, you have the ayahuasqueros who deal with ayahuasca. You have
Uh-huh.
the vegetalistas who work with, so yeah, anything that's vegetal or like plant like, but specifically non psychoactive plants. So they're
Yeah.
the guys that give you, like, your tummy's upset. Here's some mint tea, or here's some I don't know what else is good for stomach pains. Mint tea usually. Uh, and then you have let me just catch up on chat. I'm having
You're
big
good.
trouble.
You're good. No, 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 you're
Uh,
totally fine. Everybody is so excited about this, so they're all contributing.
I'm Mr. Public Nuisance serenading Manchester with a guitar and crass lyrics. I mean, let's not share with the class, Tara. That we, yeah, no, I met Tara. Not at this meetup, at the Winter Manchester meetup, and I have my travel guitar, which I affectionately call my tactical assault mandolin, and
Love
we
it.
did a little public performance.
Yeah.
You'll make excellent background radio while playing Death Stranding. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Bruja and
Mhm.
brujo. Yeah, brujeria and santeria are the weird ones, to be honest, because they
Yeah.
combine a lot of practices. And I think you can speak more about that, Nikki, than I can.
Oh, I do not think that I can. I just have the lived experiences of it that I can share. But um,
I mean, if you don't mind.
oh, right now? Oh my god. Okay, I didn't know
I
I
mean,
thought we
I'm
were
putting you on
still
the spot. I
I thought
talked
we were
for an
still
hour
talking
and a
about this
half.
stuff.
I talked for the first half.
Okay.
You talk for the second half.
Okay. So I have okay, to give just the slightest bit of context, and Benny sort of touched on it already. I am my family is Puerto Rican, and I am second generation Puerto Rican. My dad was born on the island. My mom was born in the States. So like I was not born on the island. I do not have the Puerto Rican culture as it stands on the island. But I was raised in culturally, I was raised in like the New Eurekan heritage and culture, and then my family was heavily Catholic, save for my grandmother who practiced Santeria. Um and she I was never allowed to know about what was happening. They were very private within themselves, and they were very like even within the family. So we knew, like I knew my grandmother and I loved her, but I didn't know what she did. All I knew was that there were in her closet at the house her house, there would be tiny statues of all sorts of saints. And then there would be like offerings, different offerings of food, or she would like smoke something, and there were a lot of different offerings. But again, I was never really allowed to know anything about that. There was she and then my cousin later on sort of picked up on the practice as well. She would be adorned with all white a lot, and then she would wear really colorful beaded necklaces, and these necklaces you weren't allowed to touch, only they could be the ones to touch them. And then there would be these moments where I only have two instances where something strange happened in my presence that I didn't see, but I was told was happening. Sort of. The first one is my cousin. He was sitting with me and my grandmother, and she was talking, I guess, about the spirituality, about the religion. And he said that he saw some sort of like skeletal figure walking through the house, which was kind of like that's just one instance of what happened, but similar conversations like that happened often where I would hear somebody else saw something weird or somebody else saw some sort of figure somewhere. But then another yes, and then another person, one time my aunt, I was present for a moment when she, I guess, was speaking in some sort of tongues, perhaps? I don't know specifically what it was, but there was a moment where she seemed to have been overcome, potentially possessed by something. Um during one of my times that I was staying at my grandmother's house. And so again, I was never really given insight into the religion, into the belief, outside of just what I could see. And what I saw was, I think there were occasionally animal sacrifices because but they had a lot of chickens. And so we would obviously eat the chickens because that is how they were, that's a part of the reason why they were raised. But I remember vaguely there being other practices happening that um again I wasn't welcomed into, but I was vaguely aware of that it was happening. Um and yeah, just to like Tara's point, I personally have never had the experience, but being raised in households where that was like almost a common um practice, maybe not with myself, but just to have it around. It wasn't weird or scary or abnormal to experience those things as like a third party observer. But as I grew older and I separated myself from Catholicism and practices similar to that, I just like I don't really know how I think about it all outside of it is a fascinating commentary and it's fascinating to learn about, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, this is very interesting because do you mind if I asked how old you were when that happened, Nikki?
Yeah, okay, so I'm really bad at timing and ages, but I was probably below the age of 10. I maybe 7 or 8 or something. And, like, I also just as a side note, I also remember I was not invited into any of this stuff, but I don't think it's, like, for a lack of my grandmother who was the practitioner, um, potentially trying. Because I remember taking trips with, like it's all kind of, like, now coming up as I'm talking about it. I remember taking a trip once with my grandmother and my grandfather to one of my grandmother's, like, whatever kind of event it was, and she walked into a home. My grandfather and I stayed in the truck. We waited a while, and then she walked out of the home, and we went home. And it was just like little moments like that would happen, and I feel like I was close enough to it that if my mom and my family were like, "Yeah, go ahead, take her under your wing and figure it out," I probably would have been introduced to this, but instead my cousin was, and he became very invested in the practice.
Yeah, this ties into like a personal experience of mine. So
Mm,
we have like there are similarities out there, but there are
okay.
differences if we're
Okay.
talking lived experiences.
Yeah.
So in our like more Slavic Balkan tradition, first of all, the line of initiation, and I think I've mentioned this when we first spoke, goes crisscross. So a male
Okay.
practitioner can only teach a female practitioner, and the female practitioner can only teach a male practitioner, and that's because that's how the ability gets passed on. So it's not about the knowledge that much as about the mana, we call it's called charisma in Greek. We got charisma in English from it. It's not the same thing, but it's basically that's how you pass on the gift. Most English and American translations call it the gift. And in my case, especially from my area of the country, which is southern Romania, sometimes it says that it skips a generation. My maternal grandmother was a card reader, and she used normal playing cards, not tarot cards, nothing specific, but she would like do little readings now and then, nothing major and nothing life-changing. So she was like, okay, let's see if someone's gonna come to visit later on or something like that. She was painfully accurate. Like, I don't know, I like to think myself as reasonable and bit of a non-believer, but certain things move past the realm of coincidence. And I know especially funerary practices were very kept away from children because Balkan traditions have a lot of like para-religious practices. So if you go by the book, okay, person dies, we take person to chapel, we put person in chapel for 3 days to make sure they don't wake up. That's why the period in English is called the wake. It's very like it has spiritual meaning, but the practical meaning is we couldn't tell the person was dead. So if they get up in 3 days, one of two things happens: either they get up or they start stinking, and if they start thinking, they're entering putrefaction, so they're dead.
It's fascinating.
And then we bury them. We do a little thing, like a little religious service. Then we do another religious service after 40 days, and then every 3 months up until a year, and then every year up until 7 years, which is like the big memorial service, and that's it.
Okay.
That's what the church practices.
Yeah.
Go ask any old lady past the age of 60 in Romania what you do when someone dies. You will get a 6-hour audio book with specifics. So, covering the mirrors. The first thing you do, and most Abrahamic religions, this is what I found interesting. Most Abrahamic religions have this. Jews have this. Muslims have this. First thing you do when someone dies, you cover the mirrors. This is probably our most ancient pagan practice, because the underlying belief is you don't trap the soul in the house.
Yeah.
Then the body needs to be washed in a certain way by certain people. Preferably one of the people washing the dead body needs to be a blood relative. And they need to be washed only by people of the same gender. Then there's a hierarchy of who you inform first. And it's not necessarily the closest family first and then later. You need to inform the elders first, and then they pass on that information like it's a whole thing. The funerary feast, so the feast that you go to after the burial, there are certain foods that need to be present there. All that food needs to be blessed by a priest. Besides the specific foods that were the deceased's favorites, which is like a final gesture of cordiality towards the deceased, is, oh, you made that person's favorite food. There are certain foods, and there was this running meme, and it was talking about Romanians, but most of the Balkans work. We have a special cake. It's a cake. It's a wheat cake that we only make for funerals. So it's like a wheat cake. I don't know the exact recipe. My aunt makes good ones. I don't like the taste of it. Like, it's besides the symbol. I don't like that. It's a wheat cake. And you make the sign of the cross with like candy and stuff like that. The priest blesses it. You put the candle in it. there's this whole thing that you need to rock the plate up and down.
And like hit the
when the priest blesses it. No. When the priest blesses it, you just hold it in the air and you need to rock it up and down. And from that it stemmed the meme that don't fuck with Romanians because our favorite dessert is only served at funerals.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called we call it koliva. I think Greeks and Bulgarians call it kaliva or koliva, something like that. It's grim. And then in the day of the burial, we usually like decorate a tree, a fir tree, a Christmas tree. We do it for weddings and funerals, and we did it for weddings and funerals way before the Christmas tree was a thing. There are a lot of rituals about tossing coins at crossroads while the funerary party goes from the house of the deceased to the church. There is paying alms. There are in certain areas of the country you need to either pass a horse or a chicken over it's either over the coffin or over the hole where the coffin's gonna go, the grave itself. You're not
like a
supposed
live one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The animal's okay, like you just pass it and send it away. You don't sacrifice it afterwards. There's no bloodshed. Another little superstition that we have, and this is common. I'm not sure if Muslims have it, but I know for a fact Christians and Jews do have it. When you come back from a burial, you never go straight home.
Oh.
It's considered so. Jewish mystics say that there's a risk that the angel of death will follow you home and bring death into your house.
I had no idea.
So that's usually you go to a feast, like a public place to eat something in memory of the dead, or you go to a public, like I said, either to eat or you have a walk, or you and at one point at that place you wash your hands, which is also symbolic of washing the death of your hands, but it's also hygienic and the good thing. It's good to wash your hands, especially if you're gonna sit down and have a meal. Wash your damn hands.
Wash your damn hands.
But to tie into what you said, I wasn't allowed. The first funeral I attended was my father's, and I was 24. So that was a bit of a psychological shock, but I'm not gonna lean into that. But my dad and my grandmothers all three of them were adamant. Don't let the kids see death. Don't let the kids see dead people. Don't teach him these practices. To this point, I did research, so most of the things that I know about burial rituals, I know from friends, not from family. There was this big taboo. There was also a big taboo. My mom used to hate it when my grandmother did card readings while I was around, and she basically told her off. She was telling off her own mother about don't pull the cards out while the kids are around. Like, you can do it yourself, but don't pull them off while the kids are around. Don't teach him this stuff.
And it wasn't. I was gonna say it wasn't like your family didn't believe it. They just didn't want you, like, their kids exposed to it.
Yeah. Basically, my mom knew her mom was good at card reading, but she always brushed it off. I was like, oh no, she's just doing it to pass the time, because she's got nothing to do. Because she was off work at that point. She was in her 60s, 70s. Actually, no, she was kind of in her 70s. My mom had me very late. Therefore, both my grandmothers were very old when I was a kid. So my mom had me at almost 38.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So my grandmothers were both in their 70s when I was born.
Yeah.
Late
I have
60s,
a quick
early
question
70s.
for you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you that's not from me, from I think Arcana. asking about the crossroads. Yeah. So why was it just to interrupt you really quickly? Why was it that coins were thrown at the crossroads as the procession passed? Like, what's the significance of a crossroad?
So the crossroad is seen as in a lot of different spiritual practices, traditional spiritual practices, not only in Europe, but across the world. They're seen as transition points between various places. So they're seen as in-between places, because a crossroad objectively is an in-between place. It's a place between two roads. It's where two roads intersect. It was symbolically associated with being places where the veil between our world and the spirit world was particularly thin.
Okay.
There's a good reason why throughout most of mythology, you meet the devil at the crossroads. You meet the witches at the crossroads. The witches meet at the crossroads.
Wait, yeah, that makes sense now. The veil.
There was a specific type of crossroad which was considered favored by witches, by the cult of Hecate in Greece, by a couple of other witches, which was an intersection of three roads.
Okay.
We got a very benign term from that meeting of three roads, because it's three roads. In Latin is tria via. Put those together, you get trivia, because that's where people met to gossip and throw trivia around.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's awesome. What the hell?
To Hecate? Yeah, all offerings to Hecate, Tara. All offerings to Hecate were presented at crossroads. Crossroads. So people, Hecate, for those of you who don't know, is the Greek goddess of magic, hidden things. Like her cult is a little blurry.
Okay.
She has a very interesting mythology. So she's the goddess that helps Demeter find Persephone once Persephone is kidnapped by Hades. She's represented as carrying two torches, to a point in which if you see Demeter in iconography searching for Persephone with two torches, those are Hecate's torches. And she was worshipped by a very select few. As far as I know, she has no temples. To this day, as far as I remember, there were no temples dedicated to Hecate found. She had a very, very minor cult, and it was mainly funeral workers, widows, sage women, or knowledgeable women. Because as we said, most of why is persecuting magic somewhat misogynistic, depending on the time and the place? Because most of these the most unknown practice for the male mind, and I know I'm being very misandric as a guy, but I'll admit it. There's two things that we can't comprehend as a species. The human male mind does not comprehend two experiences: periods and giving birth.
Yeah.
Therefore, because it's something we can't experience ourselves, we can't take notes, we don't know how it's done, we mysticize it.
Yeah.
We mysticize it. That's why lots of grimoires, lots of like magic manuals from the Middle Ages involve menstrual blood or the placenta or bits of the umbilical cord or stuff like that. And these old women who had this knowledge were basically midwives. There is, again, to my knowledge, might be wrong, but to my knowledge, I don't remember any medieval manuscripts mentioning a male doctor or a male midwife participating in childbirthings. It's always women, mainly old women. There was a point in certain cultures that they need to be specifically old women that are past their menopause as to not steal the fertility of the mother to be.
Ah.
So we get into we get into so the because certain practices have been tied to certain gender roles traditionally. There has always been this division between a more earthy, animistic, naturalistic side of magic, which is more pertained to the women, and the more scholarly, the so-called high magic with symbols and sigils and chanting names of angels, which is more of a male side of magic. There are traditional cultures in Europe that made this division. And I think the Norse have a very clear division between Galder and Seder. So Galder are magical chants predominantly done by men, and Seder is seen as women's magic. It's so culturally enrooted in the Norse mythology that in one of the Eddas, in one of the poems that tell us about Nordic mythology, Odin is shamed by the other gods because he knows Seder. It's like, why are you learning woman's magic? That's women's work. You're a man. What the hell, you freaking cuck? How? No, literally, like, I'm not censoring anything, and I'm not exaggerating here. They literally shame him. It's like
verbatim.
Yeah, it's like you're doing girly stuff. Like it was seen like playing with Barbie dolls. It's like, how do you're supposed to be like the macho god of war here? Like, you're supposed to be our boss. You're doing girly shit.
How interesting. That again makes me really want to lean into the exploration and like the history of gender and how it continues to like unravel itself, and like at what point does it become misogynistic. But it's all very fascinating.
Yeah, and it basically boils down to the fact that everybody does magic. I will die on this hill. We all have our superstitions. We all have our little amulets. Some of them wear them on our skin. And if you want, I could break this down because it's not. I have it on my hand. It's not private. This is my own design. So basically, what it is. Let me see if I can bring it up to the camera.
Yeah, please do.
So basically, it's a very simple wording spell made by myself. It's a pentagram. You've got the 4 alchemical elements, so earth, fire, wind, and water, and spirit at the top, with one of the classical alchemical representations of spirit. And the incantation is I got it from a 13th century 13th century magic scroll. Basically says, omnem spiritum malignum repello disparuti et non revertum. I cast away every evil spirit, vanish and never come back. That's the story of my tattoo.
Fascinating. Okay, and then can I ask, was there obviously you have a vested interest in spirituality, religion, etc., but like, was there a specific reason why you wanted that, or is it just you wanted a tattoo that was representative and you're like, this would make sense?
So I want this tattoo was half impulse, half a gift to myself. Really? So I'd be lying if I said that at least half of the reason why I got it was to freak out my mom. I got this as a gift to myself because I was growing up. I grew up in the alternative community, heavy metal, long hair, band t-shirts, stuff like that. And I was always hit with oh, mom, can I have a tattoo? You'll do it when you're 18. I got to 18. It's like, you'll do it when you're in your own house. And then just keep delaying it. And I was like, this was my gift to myself for my 30th birthday.
Amazing.
But I wanted something. I'm a big fan of trinkets and amulets and stuff like that. Like, I've got crosshair rings that I wear with no tie to Christianity.
Yeah.
I like symbols. I do have a lot of rings. So those of you who met me in person, I wear a lot of rings with various symbols. I do like, because it's basically a protection spell.
Yeah.
And yeah, my idea, and this is half the comic, half the spiritual aficionado in me, half the comic book nerd in me. I do want at one point to go full John Constantine, have mystical symbols all across my forearms, just like go full wizard mode. But that's years in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta take it one day at a time. Gotcha, I gotcha. Okay, I have a question then. Because we're coming up on almost 3 hours, and I know we talked about it being kind of our 3 hour mark for streaming. I would love for chat to be able to ask you questions about whatever interests that they might have specifically, because I feel like chat has so many questions that they would want to know, and you are a wealth of knowledge, obviously.
I'll do the best
But I
to the best of my ability. I'll try and answer everybody.
Yeah. I need to step away just for a second. I'm gonna step away for a second to grab a snack, but I'm still listening. So
I will entertain the masses.
yes, you will.
Peace. So Benny's asking, what got you into esoteric stuffs? So a lot of things, actually. I think the first thing, like the thing that clicked into my brain, was seeing the Disney movie The Sword in the Stone, which has young Arthur and Merlin as the protagonists. I won't spoil it for anybody. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on Disney Plus. It's on a lot of platforms. It's really, really fun. But I was always fascinated by the idea of doing magic and affecting the world around you with your will, with the force of your will. Just silently judging you. I mean, Tara, this was meant to be a conversation for people who aren't as familiar as the two of us are, okay? Because if we were to split hairs about every esoteric practice, all the papers behind it, all the controversies behind it, we'd be here for a 24-hour stream and we'd barely scratch the surface. What is your favorite fact about Vlad Țepeș? I was expecting this. As a Romanian historian, I was expecting this. Probably the fact that a lot of people don't know that Vladimir Paler, for most of his life, was actually Catholic. That's why, for all we know, he's buried in the north of Italy. Let's see. I'm more into the psionic realm, but I do like talking about parapsychological stuff because I had paranormal stuff happen to me. And that's a good point, because we never stopped fearing magic. The CIA has a paranormal division. They started it in the I think it's technically in the 40s or the 50s. It was really active during the Cold War because they got scared. And they got scared because the KGB already had a paranormal division, because they inherited from the Tsarist system something that was known as the Tsar's Black Cabinet, which were his esoteric advisors. And yes, Rasputin was part of the Black Cabinet.
Wow.
What would you say is your favorite type from the occult paradigms? I'm very into the, so right now, thanks to my studies, I'm very much into the high magics, the way they were understood in the Middle Ages. So the Christian side of things, I do have a book here, because most of the Christian things were kind of plagiarizing Hebrew and Jewish spirituality. So I do have a book here for those of you interested. Give me just a second.
Yeah.
I think this is the part of the show where I start flaunting my library.
Yeah, and also, whenever we're done with stream, the books that you share, let's put them aside so that we can make a list and share those specifically with everybody.
Yeah. Already ahead of you, Nikki.
Oh, shit. You're professional.
Not my first rodeo. And not my first podcast. Okay,
Perfect.
so for those of you interested in Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, this So this is a book that was recommended to me by a few friends of mine. This was also endorsed by one of the US's leading Kabbalah scholars, which is Dr. Justin Roiland. It's called the Shomer Emunim. I think it's forgot what the exact translation of Shomer Emunim is. And this edition specifically, it's by Yosef Ergas, which is a great read, but like I said, I had it for about a year, and this is how far I got into it. Also, it takes a while. It took me 8 months. It took me 8 months to get here because they're only printed in Jerusalem. Even the English versions are printed in Jerusalem, and with the war and everything, you know.
Yeah.
So hard to come by.
Yeah.
Vlad, he had a good motto: bad neighbors make good fences. Myth busting about Vlad the Impaler will probably be a talk. Will probably be a talk, but no, the whole like Vlad the Impaler, the myth everybody knows, was written by an Irishman in the 1900s, and that's Bram Stoker. And lots of the propaganda about impaling people and killing people was done by German merchants who were trying to discredit him and label him as a madman and a heretic, even within the span of his life. But he wasn't that bad. Catch up on chat.
Yeah.
I wish I had been upset to join that discussion. Loved it so far. I mean, I will put the VOD up unless Nikki has anything against it. I will probably put the VOD up. I will work on some decent translations for the subtitles for those of you who would rather go through subtitles in a language that's more accessible to you. Might be a good idea to post the books being shown. I will spam Nikki with some pictures and some references for her to share with her community. I'll also list them in my Discord for my peeps.
Yummy.
Have you ever had any personal experience that's shaken your skepticism in a way similar to grandma doing readings? Yes, I did, because I was a very curious little child and a very curious teenager, and I did have friends who read a lot into it. So I did the weirdest thing that happened to me. So seeing faces, hearing voices, furniture cracking, knocks at the door when I was alone in the house in an apartment. So nobody could knock at my bedroom door was I was alone in the house. I think the freakiest thing that happened to me was a TV turning on while it was unplugged.
Ooh, what?
It just flashed for a second. My dad and a couple of the engineers in my family told it off as like, oh no, there was some current stored in some transistor that just happened to. I was like, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. And yeah, I did have a lot of experiences like that. So figuring out what people are gonna say before they say it, whether that's a mix of intuition or something else, it's hard to say. I did use tarot cards for a while. There's a reason why they're 3,000 miles away at this point, because I might have inherited something from my grandmother.
What? Yeah, oh my god, I want to know about that now. What the heck? You can't just
I played around with a lot of things. I played around. So my bachelor's thesis is written about astrology and an astrological reading of Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Like, there's this running theory in academia. It's a lot older now than it was when I wrote my BA thesis. That each of the travelers is an allegory for one of the star signs, and they kind of map out. To a point in which, again, what I was saying earlier, most of this knowledge is meant for initiates. It's meant for people who can read between the lines. Okay? Because let's
interesting.
put this into a Twitch context. Let's put this into a Twitch context.
Okay.
Tell someone who has no idea what Twitch is that you're gonna raid out. See the reaction.
Yeah. I'm gonna
See
take
the reaction.
a handful of people, and they're all online. I don't know them, but we hang out, and then I'm gonna send them to somebody else's internet room.
To give you any context, my mom is completely offline. Like,
Okay, yeah.
my mom's 74. She has like my mom's IT knowledge boils down to the fact that she firmly believes that the only way to turn off a computer is unplugging it.
So here, this is how I would break it down. Okay, this is how I would break it down. This is what I would say. Okay, basically, I am at a party with a handful of people. I am loosely familiar with them, but we've all hung out for like 4 to 3 hours. I'm going to open the door and I'm going to escort all of my friends out of my room, and I'm going to send them the coordinates to my friend's room. And they'll go and hang out in my friend's room for a little bit until they're done hanging out there. Do you think that would translate?
Basically, no. But don't give them the context, because you gave them the context. You didn't use the same terminology you would with me or anyone hanging out in chat. Just go tell a person, "Oh, I'm gonna raid out." See their reaction, because they don't have, and you're not allowed to give them context, because what you did here is contextualize, which is the big thing.
Okay.
For example, I needed to explain my completely offline and completely technical 74-year-old mother that I stream on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing I got to is I have a radio podcast on the internet. That's the closest I could explain streaming to her. It's the same with esoteric knowledge. If you don't have the keys of interpreting the information could be right there in front of you. Okay, I could send you the secret to eternal happiness and riches, but I'll send it to you as a puzzle, and when you complete the puzzle, you find out it's in ancient Sumerian. You're not gonna be able to read that. Like,
no.
It's the same reasoning behind it. That's why it was always like this inner circle. There are cultures in Africa, and this ties into not necessarily misogyny, but enforcing gender roles. There are rituals that only men perform, that only men know about, that happen. There are tribes in Sub-Saharan Africa which have the men hut and the women's hut. Never the two shall meet. There are very specific rituals that are taught by men to other men. They're meant only for the men. There are rituals for the women taught by other women, specifically for the women. They have their own. They have certain tribes that go to the extent that they have different oral histories and different mythologies and different tellings of the same mythological stories, with focuses on different characters. It's very similar. It's very similar. It's very similar to. Now I'm saving the best one for last.
Okay.
A book here that is, but I'm afraid that we have either no or very few Romanian speakers in chat, so I don't know if I should show it or not, because it wasn't translated, so I might save this one for later. And just to have maybe like 10 or 20 minutes at the very end before after I finish this to ramble on. This was the one I was telling you about, Nikki. This one you might actually like. It's Ronald Hutton, The Witch, A History of Fear from Ancient Times to the Present.
Yeah, that is the one that you
This
showed
is pure
earlier
anthropology.
That I was like,
This is pure anthropology. This has very little history on it. You will love it.
Gimme.
The one that unfortunately I gifted so many physical copies of that I don't have a physical copy of anymore is Richard Kick-Heifer Magic in the Middle Ages, which was probably one of the seminal works for my research overall.
Okay. That's awesome. There's so much literature out there. It's good, and it's good that you're willing to give us like a list of the literature as well, because when I think about magic, when I think about all this stuff, I feel very much like how do you approach it in a scholarly lens when it is something that feels so subjective?
Yeah, I know, and the literature unfortunately is based off of very few. We've got very few sources, and we've got no way of confirming certain theories. Like if you take let's take something, and the most important sources here end up being literary, not scholarly, even back in the day. There's more magic in Chaucer and Shakespeare than there is in St. Augustine or, I don't know, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola or any other, like... I like the guys with complicated names just to show off my pronunciation skills. That was such a
fun name. Yeah, that was so good.
Take Shakespeare. Hamlet.
Yeah.
Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Okay? Round and round the cauldron go, in the poison entrails throw. Some people say that the reason why Macbeth as a play is cursed is because that witch's chant was an actual Scottish witch's chant that Shakespeare overheard and transcribed from memory.
Well, that's fun.
Another Hutton book that is useful is Triumph of the Moon as well. Yeah, Triumph of the Moon is another. Ronald Hutton, most of his works are very good for the anthropology of magic and the anthropology of I think you would like. At one point I met someone who suggested I should reach out to Ronald Hutton to ask him to supervise my PhD thesis. So that's potentially somewhere in the future, because we have our research overlaps a lot.
That's awesome, dude. That'd be so exciting.
Why is my furniture levitating? Don't say that name again. Like, this is a poor Italian guy. Like that's not even the weirdest thing. Can you roll your R's? I mean, yeah, I can pretty much.
Non-stop.
Slurps Nikki's noodles, more Eye of Newt, basically.
I know, yeah.
That's another thing. Eye of Newt.
Yeah.
Great example.
Yeah.
What is the Eye of Newt?
In my mind, it was always literally a newt's eye. Like it was just literal.
It's slang for mustard seeds.
See, and I didn't even know. That's awesome. But why?
Because nobody was supposed to know what you're putting in the pot. It was a job. If you know what I put in a potion, you can do it yourself and sell it yourself. Think of it as a trade secret.
Capitalism.
Basically. And another thing, all these incantations, like the one in Macbeth, they're mnemonics. People remember stuff that rhymes. Yes?
Yeah.
No, for example, we have these little devices to remember the order of the planets, or the like, I don't know, how you tune the strings on a guitar. Nobody remembers E, A, D, G, B, E, E. Everybody says elephants and dogs grow big ears. That's how you remember the strings on a guitar. E, A, D, G, B, E. That's how you remember them.
Yeah.
So all of these recipes and all of these incantations were probably mnemonics for some recipes which had like some curative properties. And think of it, okay, you put dead animals and plants in a pot in boiling water and stir it and eat it for a certain effect. That can be in equal parts a magic potion and a chicken soup.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I see your point. I see your point. That's called food, dog.
Like most herbal remedies are teas, tinctures, ointments, things that you can do in the house that you can still use. Okay, like I said, mint tea, very good for stomach issues.
Yeah.
Whether you call that mint something else, call it, I don't know, Satan's dandruff. You put it in a pot, it's the same mint and the same boiling water with the same effects, but putting a mystical spin on it, keeps the buyers. That's marketing. It's medieval marketing, okay?
Yeah,
we don't say we put mustard seeds. We put eye of newt because it sounds gross. Like that's what it wouldn't be something you'd go and pick out yourself, That's the main thing. We were hiding folk knowledge and rebranding it as magic, and when magic became scary and magic became a big no-no, we moved away from these cultural practices. We moved away from the reasoning behind them. We deemed them as heresy.
Yeah.
It was political, it was economical, it was in certain aspects and in certain moments of times predominantly, not completely misogynistic, but predominantly misogynistic. To a point in which, to make a very very bad joke here, it boils down to the mindset of the alpha male of like, I don't trust anything that bleeds for a whole week and doesn't die. I do not share that view. I'm just saying that that's what it boils down to. Freaking Neanderthal mindset of, women's scary because things happen to them and they still walk and they're fine. And we're trying right now just to get to nowadays. We're seeing a reemergence in pagan practices and in traditions re-emerging. You have the Dodekateistes movement in Greece that are trying to revert Greece to the 12 Olympian gods. You have Asatru in the old Norse religion. They finished the first temple to Odin in Sweden, so it's the first temple dedicated to Odin built in over 1,000 years. They finished it, I think it's 2024 or something.
Really?
Yep. Big ass temple. You see Slavic paganism practitioners being very vocal and being very organized. You see an emergence in Druidism and Wicca here in the UK. You see lots of people. I've met and I've spoken with people from the Latino community that are trying to tap into the, not necessarily brujeria, but more like curanderismo, more the healing practices and less the spooky voodoo dolly, let's curse people thing.
Right.
And you do have these societies where, like in the Balkans, like in places where cultures kind of met, and like the Christianization process wasn't that freaking like boot and heel and boot, sorry, like very beaten into them. Have these little superstitions, this little it's good to do something, touching wood, spitting. We have this thing of like spitting 3 times over a child just so you don't cast the evil eye on him. You have the Greek Orthodox Church recognizing that the evil eye is an actual thing and having a specific prayer added to the official Orthodox canon.
Yeah.
Everything we do is magic. Like that song said, every little bit she does is magic, because it is.
Yeah. it makes me think of and we talked about it a little bit of like wanting to share ours and chat's superstitions, right? The things that either you grew up thinking or the things that you currently think now. And it makes me think about how my mom, she would be like, don't, and I think about it every now and then, even though like I know it's not true, like don't, the typical don't walk underneath a ladder, don't open an umbrella inside the house. Don't walk around the house with just one shoe because if you walk around the house with just one shoe on, it means you want your mother to die. Um, yeah. Eh,
That's a new one.
uh, yeah, I don't know why. It was either shoe or sock, but I think it's shoe. And it was just like all these little things, the like knocking on wood, the don't step on a, and this was like, yes, the step on the crack one, which is so outrageous because it was what we learned about in school. It was never an actual religious one, but it's still a superstition that I picked up and I have thought about since uh, ever since. And it's not even something that was built into like a religion. It was just we as humans, little humans, developed a superstition and I bought into it and then I never stepped on a crack cuz I was afraid I'd break my mother's back. Me too,
Uh,
Ozzy. Protecting my
yeah,
mom with my
I
life.
think that's a pretty I didn't hear it in the UK. I heard it a lot from American friends, so that might be a pretty
Yeah.
American thing. I didn't know the one
Yeah.
about the one shoe.
Yeah. Yeah. I
The
don't know
one
where
my
it comes from, but yeah.
the mom that my mom still goes nuts about to this day. Don't whistle in the house. You're inviting poverty in. We even have a saying in
Ooh.
Romanian that you're baiting poverty. You're whistling to bait poverty. Fluira pagubo.
Yeah.
You're whistling of ruin. That's the verbatim translation.
Whoa.
Other than that, other superstitions. So knocking on wood, because we knock on wood, we don't
Uh,
touch wood. I know there's
yeah.
variations.
Yeah.
Never do laundry on a Sunday, but that ties into the Christian things.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What else do we have? Like personal superstitions. I'm gonna share this because I know we probably have a lot of streamers in chat and we all have our stream superstitions. I'm gonna share mine.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling down or nervous about a particular stream, like this one, I put on a little perfume before stream. It does something to my brain. There is no reasoning behind it. I just like really quick. Does
Yeah.
something to my brain. Puts me in the right mindset.
Ah. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
And in
Well, and
terms
Scald,
of
it's so interesting because, like, I feel like Scald talking about, I mean, walking under a ladder is also common sense. I feel like that is, and at least this is how I perceive, and this is how I like start to correlate things with the nature of people. It's like it's almost like, and you've sort of touched on it as well, Koga, of something gets picked up on, then it becomes something that people follow and believe and abide by. Then it gets twisted and misconstrued and becomes something that could be like mystical or magical of some sense, and then it takes on like an entire new identity of its own. And so perhaps walking under a ladder at some point was just a very common like, this is just don't walk under a ladder, but for some reason it was twisted and contorted. Like I don't know the actual root of it, but it just makes me think of that, or like the don't step on a crack. Nobody told me that that was a actual thing outside of the other kids around me. So we as children generated this logic and then took it with us into our whatever. So I don't know.
yeah,
It's interesting.
nursery rhymes are their own brand
Yeah.
of oral folklore, and most of them are pretty dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my grandma used to say not to clear the tablecloth at night because you're throwing your luck away. Yeah, that's also a thing. Thing my mom said like
Oh.
a lot of
Yeah.
things about not doing them at night. So don't take out the trash after sundown, and it's
Mm.
always about luck. So don't throw anything out of the house at night because you're throwing luck away. There is and there's a lot of things. As a guy, like I said, Balkan culture is very deeply rooted in its gender roles, and I had
Mhm.
three. I think it's three things that my mom and my most of my elderly female relatives used to tell me. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so our traditional breads like kind of like pointy.
Okay.
So we call the ends the corners, and they always said you need to eat the corner of the bread so your mother-in-law will love you.
Oh.
Another one. These are very, very Balkan. Like, you've probably never
Yeah.
heard of most of these. Don't let anyone sweep the broom over your legs because you're not gonna get married.
Yes, I've heard that one. I've heard that one.
And also don't sit on the tables at the table's corner because you won't get married.
Mm-mm-mm.
What are some of the Balkans one? There's this one's like misogynistic and racist because let's
Oh my
cover the
gosh.
whole spectrum.
Mhm.
um there's this, and this is very male southern Romanian folklore. If you can light a fire on the first go, they say that the gypsy girl had a crush on you.
Oh my goodness gracious. Again,
I
outdated
don't see the
terminology left, right,
correlation.
and center. Yeah.
And I don't see the
Oh my
correlation.
gosh. Yeah.
um and there are a lot of like
Oh my.
things that have no logical correlation.
Yeah. 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 Again, and it makes again, it just feels like a very human condition outside of all the other elements that you've explained already of just like people are going to generate thoughts and feelings and actions based off of their experiences. And like it can have no merit in anything, but for some reason there's going to be a justification and then potentially a rhyme or a song or a feeling or something. And it's just it's such a to have a spiritual belief, to think of magic, to have any of that stuff feels very human, even if we can like step away from that and break away and like think about things pragmatically and break it down into scientific fact. It just still feels very like, I don't know, person like to be like, is this no, this isn't magic.
Yeah, that's like, for example, closing your never sleep with the windows open. Yeah, scientifically houses weren't insulated great, so you would have a draft in that would help you catch a cold, but
Yeah.
most traditions in the Balkans would say you're letting the evil spirits in
Yeah, yeah.
if you sleep with
Or
the.
whenever if you like in some religions opening the windows whenever somebody has passed to make sure that their spirit can leave the facility, whatever facility is in, especially in like mortuary buildings.
Yeah, there are practices like funerary practices has their own rituals of right.
Mm,
There are
yeah.
villages in certain minorities in Russia. They have villages
Hmm.
where when someone passes, they break a hole in the roof from where the person died all the way down, so their spirit can pass. So it's not stuck in the house, because if it's stuck in the house, they turn into a vampire.
Whoa!
The
See,
Vikings, when
and
some yeah
go. No, keep going.
the Vikings, when someone died, would refuse to take the corpse out through the door. You would need to break a hole through a wall and take the corpse out of the house through that hole in the wall. So the spirit of the deceased wouldn't know the way back into the house to haunt the people still living there.
Yeah.
Madness.
And admittedly, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to ritual and anything that correlates itself to a religion or a practice therein, I am the most fascinated by funerary rituals. It is incredible the lengths in which humans will go to ensure that whatever belief they have is either enacted upon beneficially to the person who died or malignantly in some cases as well. Like seeing how archaeology bleeds into this of if you find one grave site that has like the body positioned in a certain way, you're like, oh, okay, many people are positioned this way. That means that it's a good death. But if one person is positioned differently with their head decapitated, you're like, oh, this is different and this is interesting. And why? I love it. That's a tangent, but still, nevertheless.
Yeah. No, the funerary practices are another 3-hour rant.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, of course.
I think we're coming close to our 3-hour mark, Nikki. So
We are.
closing
You wanna start
questions,
wrapping it up?
closing things. I mean, I'm not. I
Yeah.
mean, not in any rush. You suggested like around the 3-hour mark. I can go
Yeah.
for 3 hours more with maybe a bathroom break snuck in at some point. But
Well,
uh,
okay, here's my thought though, is I want to make sure we end at a 3-hour mark to give everybody the opportunity to stay hungry because you have your segment and I want maybe give us a little bit more insight into what your goal is for the tales by Tankardlight so that everybody knows because I want you guys if you're here in chat and you haven't already gone over and followed Koga do so cuz Sundays are also going to be an area where he's going to highlight the his own segment. So please let us break it down.
so basically, what I plan on doing with this is I'm a variety streamer. I started off as a variety streamer. I've got no intention of changing that. So like I like to joke, I play a variety of music and I play a variety of WoW. That's why I'm a variety streamer. But what I want to do with this whole project is at least once a month, invite another fellow streamer who I watch, whose content I enjoy, because I'm a picky little fucker, and talk about how their hobby, their special interest, their passion ties into history, mythology, spirituality to a certain extent, because my background as a historian is the history of magic and folk traditions, and I've got the working knowledge of the history of religions. I've got the working knowledge of most European mythologies, but I do want to, and I like myth busting. That's my biggest
Hey.
hobby, busting myths when it comes to misconceptions about history. Like I said, if I find a streamer that I enjoy that likes making steaks out of wood, we'll probably get a Vlad the Impaler episode.
That's so cool.
I did want to start this series off, and I'm very grateful and very honored that Nikki was our first guest on Tales by Tankardlight, because there aren't a lot of social sciences scholars and lots of people who like to nerd out on the soft sciences. I hate that term. Yeah, and I like ranting about mythology, about what makes us human, what makes us, because anthropologia, yes, words about humans, talking about humans.
Yep.
Which is boils down to the meme, but it's a meme, but it's very accurate. Humans gonna human.
Humans gonna human, baby. They really are. I would love to after you've probably like gone with other people for a while. I'd love to come back on to your segment and do a talk on like undead anthropology, funerary rites, and like just practices and stuff, and just sh- share the ones that we find the most fascinating. Because I have several that I find very fascinating, and I'd love to talk to you about, just even to yap at you.
Sure, I'm game. Worst case scenario, we do it for Halloween, just to keep on theme, because
Be so
I think
fun!
that would be fun. And now, Nikki, I will extend the invitation to you for my people here who haven't followed you. Guys, if you are not following the lovely Nikki, first of all, why? Second of all, do make sure to drop Nikki a cheeky little follow, because if you're not following Nikki, you are missing out on some really, really interesting talks, some half decent Overwatch plays.
Yeah, I can't believe you just said that.
But no, Nikki is part of the Second Breakfast Society, which is a team from which many of our streamer friends come from. Lovely people overall, and Nikki has nurtured a very nice and supportive and nerdy community, and I'm genuinely serious when I say if you're not dropping her a follow, you are missing out on some really cool talks. On that note, Nikki, would you mind, for my people who don't know you yet, telling us a little bit about your Sunday socials?
Yeah, of course. If I can, thank you so much. That was a very kind way to throw me the bone there. Also, Koga is uh where are we right now? Koga's at 285 out of 300 followers. Could we get like people please go over there and follow Koga if you have not already, okay? But to those of you who don't know me and the Sunday social stuff, I graduated this past 2025 at the end of that with my anthropology degree. I am just an undergraduate student essentially. So I have my bachelor's in it. I love anthropology, but I am still navigating the sea of what the frick I'm interested in. So, maybe 3 to 4 years ago, I started up these Sunday socials where we could come together as a community. And it started out with me just kind of info dumping on my community about everything that I was learning in my classes. And it's sort of evolved since then. I am now trying my hand at full time streaming, content creation, as well as attempting to step into the realm of science communication, just because I really do thoroughly enjoy um, learning with my community, growing with my community. I think it would be incredible to do more empirical learning chats in this space. So our Sundays tend to be I pick a topic and we kind of go through information that's already out there, but I curate what we're looking at to get that ball going. I like to say that we're sowing the seeds of curiosity. But then sometimes we get really lucky and we have people join our community who are experts in a field that I'm also fascinated in, or one that I have no idea about, and I get to learn a little bit more about it, like Koga here. So it's for as much of a honor as it is to have you here, it's like an honor for you to be interested and willing to be a part of this space, not just as like a viewer, but also as somebody willing to share your knowledge with us. Because I am hungry. I am fiending to learn more. And while Alex, wherever you are right now, might say my retention is kind of shite, I genuinely find so much interest and love and appreciation for everything that you guys bring to this table. So that's kind of, in a very loose nutshell, my Sunday social vibe. Would love to have you guys come through if you are interested.
Also, one thing that we both forgot to mention, and I will mention it because she will definitely not admit, our friend
Uh-oh.
Nikki here is also a lovely artist. So
Oh.
do make sure to check out her work. Because in
Thank
in
you.
this day of AI slop, artists with genuine talent and genuine passion for their craft are few and far between. And I will die on this
Oh,
hill. And if you don't agree with me, fight me.
thank you so much. Yeah, I love me some art. So, Koga, thank you so much for this. This was
No, thank
incredible.
you. This was
You are,
really fun. I was
yeah, you are
shitting my
brilliant.
pants before we started.
Oh my God. And I'm glad that you pulled through and you decided not to poop yourself because you did a great job. You did such a great job.
I might have gone a little unhinged here and there and a little off script, a little here and there.
That's okay. Hey, we didn't, we said we wanted this to be as loosey goosey as possible. You bringing a script and then deciding to kind of go off the rails is a good sign, I think. That is a very good sign.
And now
Yeah,
the
Tara.
we'll make a talk show host out of you. I mean, this is not my first rodeo. This is not my first talk show. I would share the other podcast I was on, but I would be doxing myself to hell and back.
Oh, okay, don't do it.
And most of my academic and nerdy talks that I have up on YouTube, unfortunately, are A, in Romanian, B, have very, very bad captions that I can't fix myself, and C, dox me to hell and back. But I'm probably one of the streamers who's not particularly very concerned about his full name leaking out. Because I'm probably like a Google search away if you really put your mind to it. But let's not go there. Thank you so much, Nikki, for agreeing to do this. Thank you for being our first guest at Tales by Tankardlight. Thank you for being such a fun person to chat with. I feel like we'll probably see you around at least once or twice before the year is up.
Yeah. I'm gonna try now that I'm following. Now that I'm following, I should be there far more often.
I mean, every follow is appreciated. Every follow is like I said, they're always expected and never appreciated. I mean the other way around.
I appreciate you so fucking much. Let's tell me where you want to raid, because I know you talked about wanting to do group raid.
Let me see who's
Everybody hold hands. We're going out together. Also,
keep your
Ro,
hands and
I
feet
you,
in
my
front
love.
of the vehicle.
You're beautiful.
Ro!
Thanks for being here. I know.
Thank you for being here.
So much support. Yeah, and chat, thank you guys so much for joining in on the conversation, being so communicative and proactive with your questions. Like that, I cannot express enough how good it feels as a creator to have people coming into the space, not just listening, which we love our lurkers and our listeners, but also willing to like join us in this talk, because we really want to just go, let's all go ham together. So thank you guys. Yep.
Well, I'm looking at potential raid targets and I don't see anyone in particular. I was this close to being like, oh look, Nikki's on.
We could let me see who I have online as well, because it'd be cool to send everybody. Yeah.
I think the only streamer who's live that we both know right now, oh no, Joy is on, Crazy Hazy's on. Like, I'm thinking of your SBS people because I'm a big SBS
You know what?
nerd.
Yeah, actually, I don't think I've raided into Crazy Hazy in a long time. We could send everybody there if you want.
I mean, I do miss the guy, and we do love the guy because we've met him at the Manchester. He pops into the Manchester meetups.
That's so fun. Can we make up chat? Can we come up with a fun raid message together? What would you guys want our raid message to be? Something with
about magic. Something about magic.
Yeah. Something about magic would be so fun. Everybody wash your hands before we start the ritual. Precisely, Sweeney. Thank you. If we take away one thing, wash your goddamn hands.
No matter what you do, wash your hands.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Hope you like but let's add hope you like magic co-raids. Maybe something like that. Wait. Oh, look who magically materialized into the chat. That's fun too.
Yeah, I think that one. I kind of like that one.
Terra's?
Yeah, Terra's.
Do we want to add the
I mean, the badum-ts is a mandatory.
I'm adding it. Yeah.
Maybe let's throw some emotes
around. There's full of fun ideas. You guys, thank you so much. Y'all have really wonderful.
Yeah, no, Terra's really creative with certain things.
Can we add a sparkle to it? I want to add sparkles. This is gonna be mine. Okay,
I'm not used to using my own emotes, so.
Do it!
I am a baby streamer. Bear with me, I am a baby streamer.
We're gonna fucking destroy your babyhood hood and bring you into never mind. This all sounds very strange what I was saying. I just basically am saying you're becoming an adult now. You're no longer baby streamer, okay?
Look,
Jesus
Ma,
Christ.
come up.
Wait, no. God damn it. Okay. Oh, Koga, yeah, that is so fun. You could take Koga's or okay, so Koga's is one if you're subscribed in Koga's stream. Mine is one you can take if you're not subscribed in either stream, so that you guys have options. Okay?
Yeah, I think it's good that we options.
All right, my loves. We are going to send you all over to Crazy.
How do we do this? I think we need to stop the. Do we need to stop the co-streaming first, or can we raid out directly from here?
I think we can raid out directly. I think it'll just keep us crazy hazy. It'll keep us in that the stream together thing until we end it. Ooh, Darwin's Paradox. That's fun. All right.
Oh, Darwin's Paradox is so freaking fun.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna start the raid now. Not like leave, but just start it.
Yeah, me too.
Bye, Red. Thank you all so much again. You guys
thank you guys for hanging out. Oh, crazy. Oh, Hazy's being he's in his BRB screen.
You know what? We're gonna okay, no, he's back. He's back.
He's back.
We got him.
Okay.
Yeah, again, thank you guys so much. I'm gonna transition us to my ending stream. I will see you guys very, very, very soon, okay? Bye, Koga.
Like I said, take care.
Bye.